Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke rose slowly from the broken buildings and twisted metal. The sky above was dark and dusty, filled with ash and falling embers. It looked like it had been snowing, if snow was gray, warm, and carried the smell of death. Jack Rayner walked through the ruins, his boots crunching over glass and burned wires. He wore an old leather coat and carried a heavy pack on his back. He wasn't a soldier anymore, not since the war ended. Now he was just a scavenger, searching empty towns and broken ships for parts to sell. But this place, it was different. It didn't look looted. It looked fresh. The fire was still hot in some corners. Some bodies hadn't even gone cold. Jack kept his hand close to his sidearm. Something bad had happened here, something recent. He moved carefully, stepping over a collapsed wall. Behind it, the ground dropped into a crater where a small alien transport had crashed. Black smoke hissed from its engines. The ship had no markings, no flag, just scars. As he got closer, he saw signs of a fight, burned laser marks on the walls, shells from plasma rifles, footprints, blood. Then he saw her. Half buried under a steel beam lying in the ashes was an alien girl. She wasn't moving. Her skin was pale gray with a soft metallic shine. Her hair, long and silver, was tangled with dirt and blood. A deep gash cut across her forehead. Her body was covered in sleek armor, though cracked and scorched. Her hand was still clutching a curved dagger. Jack froze. She looked young. Maybe 20 in human years. But she wasn't human, and this place had been a battlefield. Was she one of the attackers or just someone caught in the middle? He stepped closer. Slowly. Her chest rose, just barely. She was alive. Jack dropped to one knee and checked her pulse. It was weak, but steady. "Hey," he whispered, tapping her cheek. "Hey, can you hear me?" No answer. He looked around. The smoke, the silence. It wouldn't stay quiet for long. Someone would come back, either to finish the job or take whatever was left. He couldn't leave her here, even if she was dangerous, even if he didn't know who she was. He pulled out a small, lifting tool from his belt and pushed the steel beam off her body. It groaned as it rolled. Then he gently picked her up. She was lighter than he expected, but her armor was heavy. She didn't wake, didn't fight. Jack turned and moved quickly toward his hoverbike parked at the edge of the crater. He placed her gently on the back, tied her in, and climbed on. Engines roared to life. He sped off, ash and dust trailing behind him. His hideout was a few miles away, a half-buried bunker hidden under an old shipping yard. He parked the bike, unlocked the metal door, and carried the girl inside. The shelter was small, with tools, weapons, and parts scattered everywhere. Jack cleared a workbench and laid her down. He opened his med kit, wiped the blood from her face, cleaned the cut on her forehead. He worked quietly, carefully. His hands moved like a man who had done this before, but he kept glancing at her dagger. It was different, curved, black, and light as air. It wasn't a soldier's weapon. It was something else, something personal. After cleaning her wounds and sealing the gash with med gel, he sat back and looked at her. "Who are you?" he asked softly. She didn't answer, but her fingers moved, just a little. Jack leaned closer. Her eyes opened slowly, bright, glowing violet. They stared straight at him, and in that moment, something shifted. Jack felt a chill crawl down his back. Those weren't the eyes of a lost girl. They were the eyes of someone who had seen death, someone who had given it. She blinked once, then closed her eyes again. Jack let out a breath. He didn't know who she was, didn't know that across a dozen systems, her name was whispered in fear, didn't know she was called the Swift Death, but he had just saved her, and now, his quiet life was about to end. The bunker was quiet. too quiet. Jack Rayner moved through the small space, checking the solar cells, recharging his tools, trying to pretend everything was normal. But it wasn't. She was still here, lying on his bench, and she hadn't blinked. Not once. It had been 2 days since Jack pulled the alien girl from the ashes of that ruined battlefield. He had cleaned her wounds, fed her, and made sure her vitals stayed stable. She still hadn't spoken, but her eyes, her glowing violet eyes, followed him everywhere. She didn't ask for food, didn't ask where she was. She just watched, like a hunter in the dark. Jack pretended not to notice, but the truth was he was starting to feel the pressure. She wasn't acting like someone injured. She wasn't weak. Her movements were calm, exact, slow. Like she was measuring everything, calculating, waiting. He set a bowl of broth near her. "You've got to eat something," he said, forcing a friendly tone. She didn't move, just stared. "You understand me, right? I know basic's not your native tongue, but it's used across half the galaxy. You must know it." "Nothing." He sighed and walked back to his workbench, pretending to focus on a damaged plasma coil. But he felt her eyes on him. Always. Finally, he turned and faced her. "What's your name?" Silence. He pointed to himself. Jack, you?" Still nothing. But her gaze lowered briefly to the dagger Jack had placed on the shelf near her bed, then back to him. A message. She knew exactly where her weapon was, and she was letting him live. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat in a corner of the bunker, staring at her silhouette in the low emergency light. She hadn't laid back, just sat upright on the bench, not blinking, not speaking. She didn't need rest like a normal person. She wasn't normal. His instincts told him something simple and terrifying. This girl was trained to kill. The next morning, something changed. Jack opened his eyes to find the bench empty. His heart jumped. His blaster was already in his hand. He stood fast. Then he saw her, standing near the bunker door. Her back was to him. She was looking at the sky through the small viewing slit above. The sunrise painted her silver skin gold. She was holding her dagger again. Jack raised his weapon. Just in case, she spoke. At last. One exit. No surveillance. Quiet. Hidden well. Her voice was smooth, cold, almost mechanical. Jack didn't lower his blaster. "What are you doing?" She turned to face him. "You live alone, off-grid. No flags, no weapons-grade tech. You are not military." "Used to be," he said carefully. "I know," she replied. "I read your files." Jack blinked. "You... what?" She lifted a small device, his data stick downloaded from his ship's nav system. "I had time," she said. Jack's grip tightened on the blaster. "You could have killed me." "Yes," she said simply. "I still could." A long silence. Jack slowly lowered his weapon. "Then why didn't you?" She looked at him for a long time and finally said, "Because I wanted to know why you saved me." Jack sat down slowly, the tension still thick. "I thought you were a survivor, that you needed help." "I did," she replied. He leaned forward. "What's your name?" She didn't answer right away, then finally, "Caleth." Jack repeated it. "Caleth." It sounded like a blade unsheathing. She nodded once, then sat again, this time facing him directly. "Thank you." "Jack." Her voice still held no emotion, but her eyes didn't blink, and deep inside them, something stirred. Not mercy, not trust, but conflict. Caleth was trained to kill, but the man in front of her had done something her creators never prepared her, for he showed her kindness, and now her programming was uncertain. Far above the planet, in a quiet data chamber aboard a black starship, her last activation signal blinked red. A voice whispered, "Swift death is alive." The third night, Caleth didn't sleep. because assassins were not programmed to dream. She sat in the dark corner of the bunker, sharpening her blade slowly, silently. The sound of metal on stone was soft, but constant, like a heartbeat from the shadows. Jack Rayner pretended to sleep on the other side of the room, but he wasn't dreaming either. He was listening. He had spent most of the day fixing a broken sensor module, keeping his hands busy while his mind raced. Kalith was watching, less now, but moving more. She inspected every bolt, every exit, every sound. She adjusted the bunker's vents, cleaned his tools better than he ever had, sharpened weapons she never asked permission to touch, and always, that dagger stayed close. It was no longer fear Jack felt. It was curiosity, and something else too, a strange sense of connection, like living beside a sleeping storm knowing it could kill you, but also warm your hands in its fire. By morning, Jack couldn't take it anymore. He stood near the console where Kalith was scanning an old star map and said, "I know what you are." Kalith didn't look up. "I figured it out yesterday. Took me long enough. You're not just trained. You're conditioned. Every move you make is military perfect. You don't sleep because your brain doesn't allow rest without threat clearance. You don't eat unless your system drops below combat threshold." Still, she said nothing. Jack stepped closer. "You were made to be a weapon." This time her hand moved, slowly resting on her dagger. He raised his palms. "I'm not your enemy." Her voice came low and clear. "I was a weapon. Not anymore." Jack tilted his head. "You don't believe that." "I want to." She finally looked at him. In that moment, Jack saw something in her eyes, something beyond the glow. A crack, a question, a part of her that was breaking free. Later that day, Jack was cleaning the ship's external panels, trying to refocus his mind. Kalith sat nearby, staring at a holographic display from her recovered armor. Then something beeped. She froze. A hidden message had triggered, a contract file. Target, Jack Rayner. She stared at it, her hand trembling. It was real, years old. Status delayed, condition, sleep mode activated. A mission she was programmed to carry out, then paused, hidden deep in her system. She had been sent to kill him, long before she even knew who he was. Kalith looked toward the open hatch, where Jack stood wiping oil from his gloves. For a second, her hand moved to her dagger. But then she did something her makers never expected. She deleted the file. That night, Jack found her standing outside under the stars. She didn't turn when he walked up. "I found something in my systems," she said quietly. "An old command. A contract." Jack stiffened. "Was it about me?" "Yes." "Are you going to finish it?" She turned to him. Her eyes were darker now. "I was sent to kill you, Jack, before I even knew your name, but I don't follow commands anymore. I make my own decisions." Jack looked at her for a long moment. "What changed?" "You changed it." Back inside, the bunker. Jack sat at the workbench, slowly processing what he'd heard. Kalith sat across from him, more relaxed than he had ever seen her. "I'm not what you think," she said. Jack smiled a little. "You're not a killer," she shrugged. "I am. But I'm also someone who's tired. Tired of orders. Tired of silence. Tired of being nothing without a mission." Jack looked into her eyes. "You're not nothing." She blinked. For once, slowly, then whispered, "Then help me figure out what I am." But far away in a secure facility buried under a black planet's surface, a silent screen flickered on. Her kill contract had been deleted. Manually, alarms flashed. A voice spoke in the shadows. "Swift Death has gone rogue. Deploy reclamation, team." The bunker was still. But something inside Kalith was not. She stood in front of the mirror, cracked, dusty, barely holding its shape. Her reflection stared back, dressed in armor now cleaned and restored. The same armor she had worn when death followed her every step. She wasn't sure if she hated it or missed it. Behind her, Jack Rayner walked into the room, holding a steaming cup of synth tea. "You okay?" he asked. Kalith didn't answer right. "Away. I deleted the contract," she said. "I know." Jack placed the cup on the table. "But something's wrong," she added. "I feel slow, faint static in my head. My thoughts, sometimes they flicker like a glitch." Jack frowned. "It's your neural core, isn't it?" She nodded once. "I was never meant to break free. The system fights back when the weapon stops listening." They opened her armor's back panel. Inside, wires connected to a black, pulsing core. Jack carefully hooked it into his diagnostic tool. The screen lit up, lines of code, red flashing commands, warning loops. He leaned in. "What is this? These aren't just kill orders. This is behavioral control code." Kalith sat down, her voice quiet. "My thoughts were never fully mine. They gave me pain when I hesitated, relief when I obeyed. I was fast, deadly, but not free." Jack stared at her. "So the real mission never ended?" She nodded. "Even after I chose not to kill you, the system still sees that as failure. It's trying to reset me." That night, Kalith felt the glitch grow stronger. She sat alone, her hands shaking. Memories began to flash without warning. Quick visions of old. Kills, ambushes, missions long buried. Faces, places, screams. And always the same cold voice whispering, "Complete the objective." She gritted her teeth. "I'm not that anymore." But the voice inside her head kept echoing. "Complete the objective. Eliminate the witness. Reclaim control." Her hands moved on their own, reaching for her dagger, until Jack's voice. "Kalith." She looked up, trembling. "You're not alone," he said gently. She dropped the dagger, and for the first time she looked afraid. The next morning, Jack built something. An old neural filter, half Earth tech, half Vatraxian logic code. It wouldn't delete the assassin programming, but it might slow it down. He strapped the device to Kalith's wrist and linked it to her spine implant. As he tightened the last bolt, she whispered, "Why are you doing this?" "Because," Jack said, "I think the galaxy deserves to see what you could be without a leash." She looked at him, her voice hollow. "They'll come for me. I know. And when they do, I may forget who I am again." Jack smiled sadly. "Then I'll remind you." Far above, on the edge of the system, a black ship exited hyperspace. Inside it, cold-eyed soldiers geared. Up at their center stood a tall figure in gray armor, expressionless, wired to command. "Target marked," the AI said. "Subject swift death has gone rogue. Objective? Recover her mind, or destroy what's left." The stars above the bunker had never looked brighter, but down below, death was falling fast. Kalith stood on the roof of the shelter, eyes scanning the sky. Her neural filter buzzed faintly on her wrist, like it was sensing something wrong, something coming. Inside the bunker, Jack Rayner worked on the last upgrades to the ship. He had reinforced the outer hull and hardwired the comms to a private signal band. No tracking, no leaks, or so he thought. Because 2 clicks away, just beyond the ridge, they were already watching. In the hills, a silent drone flew low, invisible to most scanners. It paused mid-air, locked onto the signal from Kalith's implant, the one she thought was quiet. In a flash of blue light, the drone transmitted a command code into the wind. The trap had been rearmed. Inside Kalith's mind, the glitch returned, but this time it was louder, reconnecting. "Execute recall protocol." She staggered, grabbing the edge of the roof. Her head throbbed. Images returned, black corridors, metal tables, her handlers' cold voices. She whispered, "No, no." Jack heard her cry and ran outside. He saw her on her knees, shaking. Her fingers were twitching. Her eyes, They were glowing brighter than before. He ran to her and grabbed her shoulders. "Kalith, stay with me." She looked up, and for a split second her face changed. Not scared, not calm, but blank, emotionless. Her hand went to her dagger. "Kalith, no." She pulled back, but she didn't strike. She threw the dagger into the ground, hard. Her breathing was heavy. Her eyes blinked once, twice, and returned to normal. "I fought it," she said in a shaking voice, "but it's waking up." Suddenly, alarms blared from Jack's console. 6 drop pods entered atmosphere. Jack rushed to the screens. "They're here." Kalith stood beside him. Her voice became cold again, but this time by choice. "They won't talk. They don't negotiate. They're not here to bring me back. They're here to erase me." Jack loaded his old rifle. "I won't let them take you. You can't stop them." "I'm not trying to stop them," he said. "I'm standing with you." Outside, the first pod crashed into the dirt with a deep thud. Armored troopers stepped out. Silent. Fast. Each one moved like a shadow. Kalith narrowed her eyes. "They're using the same formation I once led. Then you know how to beat it." She nodded. "But we need to split them." Jack threw her a modified plasma charge. "Then let's split them." They fought like fire and ice. Kalith moved faster than any human could track, leaping, flipping, striking with blade and speed. Jack used his traps, his tech, his aim. Together they were chaos, but the troopers weren't slow. One of them landed a shot, burning Kalith's shoulder. She dropped, rolling to cover. Her neural filter cracked, sparks flying. Suddenly, her body froze. Her eyes turned white. "Rebooting control core." "No," she whispered. "Not again." Jack ran to her, dodging blasts. He knelt beside her, lifted her chin, and shouted over the noise. "You're not a weapon anymore." She looked at him. Empty. Blank. He grabbed her hand and said the only words that could break the program. "Kalith, you chose me." Her eyes flickered. Override error. Core conflicted. Then, her hand gripped his back. She pulled herself up, and her voice returned. "I choose again." She turned, her blade flying through the air, taking down the nearest soldier in one silent move. The others backed away, but one stepped forward. Larger, colder. The commander. His voice cut through. "The air. You should not exist." Kalith stood tall. "I chose to exist." He raised his rifle. But before he could fire, Jack shot first. One clean shot, right through the command port. The trooper dropped. Silence followed. Only wind and breath remained. Kalith fell to her knees. Her system calmed. The control code. Broken. Finally. She looked up at Jack. Tired, wounded, free. Far above, a single black ship received the signal. Reclamation failed. Subject lost. Mission terminated. A silent order followed. Delete all files. Swift. Death no longer exists. The battlefield was silent again. Bodies lay still. Smoke drifted like ghosts in the cold air. But inside the bunker, the real war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Kalith sat on the floor, her back against the wall. Her breathing was shallow. Her neural filters sparked and hissed. Her hand clutched. Her side, burning with pain from the last hit. Blood, dark silver, dripped onto the floor. Jack Rayner knelt beside her. "You need rest," he said softly. Kalith shook her head. "No time." She looked up at him. Her voice trembled for the first time. "It's inside me, Jack, the override. It wasn't just a control, it's a reset command. If it finishes, I won't remember you. I won't remember this place. I won't even remember myself." Jack's heart sank. How long? An hour? Maybe less. He stood, pacing the room. There has to be something. Some code, some shutdown key. "There is," she said slowly. "But it's locked. Deep. It takes a life signal from my original handler. Jack paused. And that's dead, she whispered. I killed him. Years ago. Silence. Then Kalith reached into a small case from her belt and pulled out a last resort device, a neural pulse blade, thin, short, glowing softly blue. This can fry the core, she said, destroy it permanently. Good, but it will burn everything around it, including memory zones, including me. Jack swallowed. You'll lose everything? Kalith nodded. Everything I've learned since waking up here. My name. My choice. You. Jack stared at the blade. No, he said. There has to be another way. There's not, she said calmly. I've run all the paths. This is the only one. He shook his head, fighting back anger. There's always a choice. There was. I made it when I didn't kill you. Suddenly she cried out, clutching her head. A bright light pulsed from her eyes. Final override initiated. Swift death protocol re-engaging. Her voice became hollow. It's happening. Jack moved quickly. He grabbed the pulse blade from her hands, but instead of pressing it to her chest, he pressed it to his own neck. Kalith's eyes widened. No. I can link my signal to yours, he said quickly. Biobond. If I trigger the shutdown as your choice-bound partner, the system will read it as valid input. I can act as your new override key. You'll burn with me. Then we burn together, Jack said, holding the blade steady. No, she shouted, struggling against the programming. You don't understand. If you die, I'll lose the only person who ever treated me like I was more than a weapon. He smiled. Then fight it. She reached out, trembling. Her hands gripped his. The glow from her eyes flickered. Her mind trembled between two sides, code and memory, obedience and love, orders and choice. Override error, conflict detected, cannot complete reset. Kalith's voice cracked. I choose me. She slammed her hand over the pulse blade and turned it inward, directly into the base of her neck. A white flash exploded across the room. Jack fell backward, knocked off his feet. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Her scream echoed through the walls. Then, darkness. When he opened his eyes, the bunker was still. Smoke hovered low. Lights flickered. Kalith lay on the floor, motionless. Jack crawled to her side, hands shaking. Her eyes were closed. Her neural implant. Gone. Burned out. He pressed his head against her chest. Silence. Then, thump, thump. A heartbeat. Her eyes opened slowly. No glow. Just soft violet. She looked at Jack. Do you know me? He whispered. She blinked, then smiled faintly. I know. You saved me. Outside, the sun began to rise. Inside, the deadliest weapon the galaxy had ever built was finally free. The wind moved softly across the hills. For the first time in years, Kalith felt it on her skin. Not through a helmet, not through armor, but real, raw, free. She stood outside the bunker, the rising sun warming her face. No code buzzed in her head. No voice gave her orders. No kill list haunted her memory, just birds in the sky and the sound of her own breathing. Behind her, Jack Rayner walked out with 2 mugs of synth coffee. She turned and smiled gently. I remember the stars, she said. Jack handed her the drink. Only the stars? No, she said. I remember you. They sat together on a rock ledge overlooking the quiet valley. Below, their ship was parked and ready, fully repaired, fueled. But for now, it could wait. Kalith's eyes were calm, her movements softer. She wore a simple jacket now, no armor. The old dagger was still on her belt, but it hadn't been touched since the override ended. You know, Jack said, the galaxy still thinks you're dead. Good, she replied. Let them. He glanced at her. And what do you want to be now? Kalith stared at the horizon. I don't want to be Swift Death anymore. That name, belonged to someone else. Jack nodded. Then who are you, now? She looked at him, slowly, deeply. I'm Kalith, a girl who was made to kill, but chose to live. The next few days were quiet. They visited small moons, helped outposts with broken tech, never stayed too long, never used real names. They were ghosts with kind hands passing through quietly. Word spread among travelers, a human and a silver-skinned girl. She moved with the grace of a soldier, but held children gently in her arms. He used to be a soldier too, but now he smiled. No one knew their past, but everyone remembered the way they looked at each other, like two people who survived something terrible and still chose kindness. One night, under a blanket of stars, Kalith asked him, "If I had killed you, that first day, would you hate me now?" Jack shook his head. "I think even if you had, a piece of you would have regretted it, and that piece that was always the real you." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I don't want to run anymore." "Then don't." Far away, on a planet that once ordered her death, a small rebel group watched a leaked message, footage from an old Black Ops vault. Silent, glitchy. It showed a girl in silver armor, standing over her fallen target. But instead of finishing the job, she walked away. One rebel leader whispered, "She had a choice, and she didn't kill." Back in the stars, Kalith and Jack flew together, not as soldier and weapon, not as hunter and target, but as two people building something new, a future, a story no one expected, a legend told in quiet corners of space. The human who saved an assassin, the assassin who chose peace, and the day she learned she could love.